Be the Talk, episode 353, featuring Sandy Weiner. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Sandy Weiner. Sandy, are you ready to talk?
I'm so ready.
Sandy Weiner, founder of Last First Date, is devoted to helping women over 40 achieve healthy, toe-curling, epic love. An internationally known TEDx speaker, love coach, author, and retreat leader, Sandy wants you to go on your last first date. Sandy Weiner, welcome to the talk.
Thank you.
Your talk is called I Went Through Life Like a Tootsie Roll Pop. And I'm just going to say, hey, fortunately, at least in my case, I wanted to get hitched before I was 40, and I barely made it. I think I got married in my, almost mid 30s, and that was a little late for me. I know a little bit of how lonely that can be, especially if you're a Valentine's Day baby like me. And I remember my sister at the time, my sister now, but at the time she was kind of single, and we went out for pizza on my birthday, which was Valentine's Day. And it was just kind of lonely and a little not so fun for either one of us, even though she was trying to help. We were trying to help one another out. So I love what you are doing. Your talk is called I Went Through Life Like a Tootsie Roll Pop, and you were able to switch that. So you were able to go from being hard on the outside to being soft on the outside. Sandy, please take us behind the talk.
All right. So this talk actually was inspired by somebody I dated after my divorce, who said, I'm like a Tootsie Pop. I'm tough on the outside and I'm soft and mushy on the inside. And
now, was that a compliment or was that not so much of a compliment? What was the spirit in which that was offered?
Well, he was talking about himself. He said, he was like, I'm this tough guy, but I'm really soft on the inside. And I thought that's what I'm looking for in a man. I'm looking for this like macho tough guy who's really soft on the inside. And then I had this epiphany that I am that person too. And it's actually not a good thing. Mm. And I started thinking about like how I got here. And it really was that all the experiences I had in dating, I just started building up walls. And instead of internalizing and growing, I became harder and harder. So I became super sarcastic, and I didn't share my deepest thoughts because I was afraid. And so I had a relationship with somebody that I speak about in the talk that ended in, it was just platonic. I thought it was moving in a direction that was going to be like the love of my life. And when that ended, I shut my heart down for good and ended up meeting somebody who was in love with me. And I thought that was enough. He had some of the values I was looking for, and I thought that would keep me safe. And it didn't. And I stayed for a very long time. And then when I got divorced, I became a dating coach because I had these awarenesses that other people didn't have. And I wanted to really help other women to soften themselves, to really be able to get strong on the inside, which I like the Heath Bar approach to dating, which is tough on the inside because you have to know who you are, your values, and then you can soften on the outside.
Well, I think this is great. And yeah, you're the perfect person to be walking other people through this, just because of going through all the range of not just emotions, but it's really a mindset thing. And so, anyone in the TEDx speaker world who's talking to others or watching other talks or going to events, we know that there's this kind of mindful approach where we can be judgmental and certain and right, at least in our own mind, or we can open up and be perceptive, and we can be curious, and we can view everything as a learning experience, no matter how painful it is. And I just think that's very interesting and helpful that you have enjoyed both mindsets, and you're kind of harvesting the best out of both mindsets. And you mentioned in the talk, as well as you just alluded to it right now, Sandy, you thought you found the right person, and then the person was actually engaged. He was actually off the market, and it was totally platonic, but you kind of missed it. My question is, was it in part because of kind of your certain attitude, and you convinced yourself maybe of a feeling and it turned out to be wrong and you weren't as open and curious, or maybe some other reason? Did that play into that mistake or misjudgment, in your opinion?
I think it's partially that. And I definitely didn't know how to speak up. I didn't know how to ask for what I wanted. So I never had a conversation with him about where are we going? Hey, what's happening here? And when he invited me over for dinner and cooked me like a 4-course meal and gave me a full body massage, I thought, this is it, right? Like, who wouldn't think that?
Guys out there, that's going to be a mixed signal, even if you are engaged to somebody. Now, that as a guy, I'm telling you, that's a massively mixed signal. Well, that is not usual, but. He got engaged a few months later, but he was seeing somebody seriously at the time. And years later, I have to say that I found out we became friendly with this couple. I mean, he was one of my closest friends, and then we didn't speak for a long time. When I got married, my ex-husband really connected with this guy at synagogue, and he used to sit next to him, and he was like, I want to invite this couple over. And I'm like, I don't really want them in my house, but okay. And we became close friends. And years later, his wife said to me that the reason that he ended up dating her was because she had a big mouth and she asked for it. So what happened was they got set up on a date, and they were set up at a wedding. And he took her back to her hotel. And he drops her off in the taxi. He said, look, if you're ever visiting New York again, look me up. So that was his persona. It was like not really being aggressively pursuing women. And she went back to the people who set her up and she said, listen, I really like this guy. I want to marry him. He had that effect on women. And that's how she ended up with him. So that was the first thing. So this is, and now I'm backing up, because she was set up for a date and then set up for a wedding, but not at the same time. So this was the date. This is the date that wouldn't have gone very well if your female friend hadn't spoke up and become very intentional.
Well, actually, they were set up to meet at the wedding. So he was driving
at someone else's. Okay,
yeah. So
that was a little confusing.
Yeah, no, it's a little confusing. But the point was that she was much more assertive. She knew what she wanted and she asked for it. And it took me a very long time to get there. The other thing that she shared with me that was another epiphany was years later, she said, I asked him why he never dated you, because he used to talk about me all the time with her. And he said that I was harsh. And that was, connect the dots. I was harsh. So he didn't see the warmth. He didn't see who I was underneath because of all the guards. So it's really important that we do the inner work so that we're not walking around with armor, because nobody wants to break through the armor anymore, especially when you date when you're older. It's like nobody's got time for that.
Well, hey, Talk Universe, if that's it, really, that's all of us. We all, it doesn't matter if we're single, married, whatever, we should all be working on some of the more prickly parts of ourselves. And Talk Universe, if that's you, even in part, I want to encourage you, listen to Sandy, learn from her, and let this be helpful interview for you. And Sandy, what was some of the deep work that you had to do on yourself to really transform and really almost do the switcheroo, because you were hard on the outside and tender on the inside. Now all of a sudden you're more tender on the outside and you have a good solid core on the inside. So what was the turning point for you?
So the solid core is the key word here. I had to get clear about who I was, what my values were, what I stood for. Because if you don't stand for anything, you stand for everything and you stand for nothing at the same time. And people just basically you're living somebody else's life and not your own. And my divorce really was the catalyst for that. And so I went to coaching school and I learned what my core values were. And then you take a stand for those values. And so I actually have a new website it's in process right now. And it's a whole new business called The Woman of Value. And the woman of value is really what I ascribe to be and also what I teach women to be. And the motto is show up, stand up, speak up. So you show up in your full glory with your core values. You stand up for those values. You take a stand. You set boundaries. You learn how to do that with grace. And you speak up. You learn how to speak not only for yourself, but, get up on a stage, do things that are scary.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Sandy Weiner. Her talk is called I Went Through Life like a Tootsie Roll Pop. And we're going to be right back with Sandy Weiner in just a moment for the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back. It's time for the Blitz Round with Sandy Weiner. Her talk is called I Went Through Life Like a Tootsie Roll Pop. And I'm going to ask Sandy a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent talk. Sandy, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
It was a kind of a combination. It was a bizarre situation. I walked with a friend every day and she had never heard of TED Talks. And so the day before I mentioned the TED Talk that I loved. And the next day she sees her friend is having this TEDx conference and is looking for guests. And so she connects us on a Facebook message. The woman says, what are you passionate about? I tell her. She goes, okay, you're in. You just fill out this application. So it was kind of bizarre. And it wouldn't have happened if my friend didn't have TED on her radar. And
it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't educated your friend about what TED was and she had the connection all along. That's pretty. Yeah, that's one of the more near miracle stories that I've heard. Awesome. Hey, folks, you gotta just get aware and get intentional, and magic can happen. Sandy, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
I'm a blender, mostly memorizer, and I'll tell you that TEDx talk was the first time I really spoke on a stage.
Really? Oh, wow.
I'm a backwards speaker. So I kind of, you have ready, aim, fire. I'm more like fire, aim, ready. I have the passion and I want to do it. And then I go, what the hell am I going to do? And so,
which is what we all do.
Right. So I think,
which is why that's so important.
It's important to do things before you're ready. So I freaked out and then I got support. I joined Toastmasters and I hired a speech coach because I didn't even know how to write a speech. But I was determined to do it well.
Awesome. And kudos for you for hiring the right coaching and getting part of the right community for you. Sandy, what was the most painful part of your talk to cut out?
I think for me, it was more about focus. I tend to connect everything. That's part of the story too. And so for me, what my speech coach really helped me with was, you have a theme, Tootsie Roll Pop, Tootsie Pop, Tootsie Pop. Like it's just filter through the Tootsie Pop. And I'm going, no, that's stupid. But it's not stupid. It's what people need to hear. So that was the biggest learning, I think, for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, cutting things out, honing, getting back to the point, it all fits under that umbrella for sure.
Definitely.
Sandy, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
I would say, I don't know about strange, but it was surprising to me how little most people prepared for the talk. And a lot of people came dressed terribly, giving speeches that were way too long. It was like they were teaching a class and hadn't really prepared. And it actually gave me more confidence because I'm like, wow, I'm so prepared and I'm going to do much better than I think.
So that leads me to surmise that this might have been the inaugural TEDx event right there.
Yeah.
They had never done one of these before. So that increases your chances of getting accepted or invited to speak. However, I always counsel people, it's like applying to a job or Ivy League school versus community college or whatever. Your percentages and your likelihood is a lot different depending on what kind of events that you're applying to. But in your case, oh my gosh, that was your first opportunity to speak. Kudos for you for hiring a coach and writing that script out and doing all the things you did, because now you have a TEDx talk.
Yeah, no, I'm so grateful.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Sandy Weiner. Her talk is called I Went Through Life Like a Tootsie Roll Pop. And you can find out more information about Sandy by going to our website, BeTheTalk, in our show notes page. We will have a link for you to watch this talk, and we will have another link to Sandy's website, lastfirstdate.com, as well as the other one that's about to be released, which is
thewomanofvalue.com.
Thewomanofvalue.com. So we will have both in there, and we will be right back with Sandy Weiner for the final word of advice. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Sandy Weiner. It is time for the final word of advice.
Get support. You don't have to do this alone. And especially if the option is to freak out and quit, getting support is so important. And now that I've had support, I know how to support other people. And so I've become a mentor to so many people who are speaking because I love watching people overcome fear and take those risks, because that's how we grow and become bigger and become who we're meant to be.
Well, Sandy Weiner, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.